Hey, what's up? It's your boy Michael Forstocco, and I'm here to record the first of many episodes of The Franchise King show. And what this show is going to be about is basically me talking about my favorite franchises I own, and what I think about them. I am not going to review every film in the franchise. I'm just going to say why I love it and tell you why I keep these franchises in a high regard. Now, the first franchise I will be talking about, as you can see in the basically banner I made for the franchises, because each banner you're going to see when I talk about these franchises, I made myself. I'm putting the pictures together. The way I got the idea of making banners with posters, I got it from actually my horrible. That's in my apartment. If you're friends with me on Facebook, I kind of posted on my wall about it. Showed you my wall, showed you my door when I have like, I believe 6 or 7 of the horror icons. Let me think. You got Freddy, Candyman, Jason, Michael, Chucky, and Leatherface. Yeah, 6 of them. Oh, and Pinhead. Yeah, Pinhead. So that's 7 of them. But with that said, let's start this with A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, I really adore and I really respect a whole lot, because basically it's the reason why I'm a fan of horror, and it's basically the reason why I'm a fan of film. Because the first film I ever saw was A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Now, the reason I found this VHS is because I was going through my brother's stuff and I found a VHS. And my brother even told me that I watched that film at least 20 times a day. Like, I couldn't stop watching Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, and I fell in love with the character of Freddy. So I started making gloves, with pencils and tape on the glove. And now I made 2 gloves. And I'm going to do a separate video talking about why I'm a fan of Freddy and everything. But this is more about this franchise. But when I got introduced to the rest of the franchise, I absolutely fell in love with Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street is one of a kind. Yes, I know Dreamscape came out first, and I understand that. But Nightmare on Elm Street is the first of its kind to do what it did. You're never going to see another character like Freddy again. Yes, you got similarities with Leprechaun that he cracks jokes too, but I'm talking about the whole mythos of it, the whole backstory, the whole story of it. You'll never see that again in horror. And same with Jason and Michael and Chucky. You'll never see this again. And when the remake came out, I was kind of pissed off, not because Robert Englund wasn't in it. I knew Freddy vs. Jason was going to be his last film. But I got upset because the trailer looked shitty. And once the trailer looked shitty, I knew this movie was going to be bad. But I don't like how so-called people just got the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise because it's popular. That's what I hate about so-called horror fans. They just get a popular title because it's popular. And I hate that shit, because when Freddy wasn't popular, he was still the man. He wasn't mainstream. That's what killed horror. When horror went into mainstream, that's what killed it. That's what completely killed horror, and that's what made horror pussyfied. Now there's nothing good in horror, except for like Phantasm 5 that I'm waiting on, and VHS 3 in certain films, but it's not like how it was in the 80s and 70s and 60s, how you had all these horror movies coming out like on a weekly basis. Like, you lucky if you get like 10 titles in 1 month. You're lucky. But what makes Nightmare on Elm Street so special is just the idea of somebody killing you in a dream. The reason this came about is that Wes Craven, when he was a kid, he used to look out his window and he used to see a man with like a scarred up face, and he just looked at Wes, and then Wes got scared and he hid. If you don't believe me, watch the Never Sleep Again documentary. He says it there. Watch the VHS from the box set from 1999 of the first 7 Nightmare on Elm Street films, because he does talk about it. He does explain how he got the entire story. He got the dream story from this article he read in the newspaper about this Asian boy that he was so afraid because he kept having someone chasing him in his dream. And this kid was so afraid he used to beg his parents for him to stay up. What Nancy does in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, this boy did. You know that coffee machine that Nancy had in her room? This boy had it too. But one night his parents decide to basically put sleeping pills in what he was drinking so the boy could fall asleep finally. So then he saw the boy falling asleep in the living room, so they carried him to the bedroom and they thought everything was fine. He's sleeping, he's okay, whatever. Then in the middle of the night they heard screaming. If you don't believe me, if you don't believe what I'm saying, then basically look it up yourself. Wes says it in multiple interviews he's done over the years. He said how he got the entire story, how he got Freddy and everything. So when Russ was hiding and the man was looking at him, West thought, oh, the guy left or whatever. And then when he looked back at where the spot he was looking at, where the man was at, the man was still there looking at Wes's window as a kid. And that freaked him out. So that's where he got the inspiration for Freddy. Then the kid, the Asian kid, he started screaming in the middle of the night. And then when the parents went into his room, he was dead. He was just dead. So that's when Wes Craven got the idea for, imagine if somebody was haunting you and then he kills you in your dreams. So that's when this whole the guy that stared at him as a kid, this Asian boy passing away, he put it all together, and that's how Nightmare on Elm Street came about. Now, I love this franchise. I love the first 8 Nightmare on Elm Street franchises. I adore them because they're a huge part of my childhood, just like Friday the 13th, Halloween, all the other horror franchises I grew up on. Too bad there's not many horror franchises anymore, because this decade you got Saw, Final Destination, and Paranormal Activity, and then that's it. In the 80s, you had like 5, 6, 7, 8 fucking franchises going on at once. You know what I love about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is that it's so simple, but yet complex. That's why I love the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, because it's so great. Each film within itself, it's like its standalone story, but it's still connecting to the last sequel that came before it. The one thing I love about this franchise has to be the characters. Come on, you got characters like Joey, Kincaid. I'm trying to think of all of them because there's a lot of kids in all these films. Alice, Nancy, Glenn, Mr. Johnny Depp, who don't want to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street like it doesn't matter to him, even though it was the movie that made him. You got a lot of characters. That's what I love about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, because it has such great group of kids. Like you got Kincaid, a badass. You got Terry, a badass, until, you know, Freddy injects her and says, "Let's get high." And you also got the character of Tina. She was the first girl to die. She was like the 80s version of the woman who died in Psycho. She was like that version because she was the first one. Everybody thought she was going to be the one to fight Freddy, but then it switched to Nancy. So it was like a whole Psycho switch. One thing I love about Nightmare on Elm Street is the score. The music score is so beautiful and haunting. And I have to say, that was the first musical horror score I ever heard in my life. And I just fell in love with it because it's so haunting and it's so eerie and it blends so well with the movie. I love all the scores from every film. All 8 movies, I love every score that they made for every Freddy film. I even like the score from the remake, but that's the only thing I like from the remake is the score. Nothing else. I don't like nothing else from the remake, just the score of it. Okay, because I could listen to the score and not think about the movie, because the movie was so watered down and dumb. The only thing I pay attention to was the score of it. That's why, to me, the remake is not part of the franchise in One Night Older. Just because it has Nightmare on Elm Street as the title, and it has Freddy and Nancy with not the same name because the last name is not, you know, Thomas. But yeah, I do not consider the remake any part of the franchise. All it did was rip off things from other Freddy films. They even stole lines from other Freddy movies. And that's why I think of that film as the worst remake ever. Because it didn't even do nothing original with Freddy. It didn't do nothing. At least in the first 8 films, they did different things with Freddy in the dreams. They was more creative. But in the remake, it was so watered down and dumbed down, I just couldn't get into it. I will give you my thoughts on the remake when I do one of my Talk Cinemas, where I'm going to do an entire video talking about why I dislike the remake. There's a lot of Freddy fans that actually co-signed the remake, and I look at them like, really? You know, and just doesn't make sense, because to me, I'm a loyal fan. I stay loyal to the original franchise. If the remake spits on the franchise, I can't fuck with it. Same for Halloween, same for Friday the 13th remake. I can't fuck with a remake that spits on the franchise. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think the remake is such a blasphemy to the original franchise. I can't really get into it. Hell, when I had my little marathon last week of all the Nightmare on Elm Street films, I didn't even watch the fucking remake. I completely watched 1 through 8 of Freddy and just skipped the remake. Because I already know what it's going to be. A watered down, dumbed down version of the original iconic film. That's the difference between a remake and an iconic film. A remake only works if they do it right. But if they fucking up, then they make all the other sequels in the franchise look better. But the first one is such an iconic film, especially the scene when Nancy's in the bed and Freddy's leaning over and he's stretching the wall. That's iconic. Not some shitty CGI bubble shit that looks horrible. And the other thing that fails about the remake is the shitty ass acting. I think the acting in the remake is fucking horrible. Like, the Nancy in the remake is so fucking numb. She don't show emotion. At least Heather Langenkamp show emotion. That's the thing about the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Every actor or actress that was fighting Freddy, they showed emotion. Alice, Tina, Nancy, Tristan, they all showed emotion while they was fighting Freddy. Hell, even fucking Jesse, the one from the sequel that everybody seems to hate and label as, oh, it's a gay sequel. When I was growing up, I never thought about that in Freddy 2. I never thought about that in Batman and Robin, or even Batman Forever. I never thought about gay tones in films. I wasn't really into that shit. Now, when I first got into the internet, I didn't know people hated Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I didn't know that people hated Nightmare on Elm Street 5. I didn't know that people hated Freddy's Dead and New Nightmare. But then they call themselves Freddy fans. That confuses the fuck out of me, because how can you call yourself a Freddy fan, but you're bashing half of the fucking franchise and kissing ass to the most popular sequels? That don't make you a real fan. That makes you a fan that picks the most obvious sequels people love and bash the obvious sequels that people hate. That's one thing I hate about meeting people who are fans of franchises, because they confuse me. When I was growing up, I didn't grow with a group of people telling me, oh, Batman Forever is bad, or oh, Freddy's Dead suck. No, you know why? Because I created my own opinion. That's why people hate my guts on the fucking internet, because I have my own opinion. I'm not going to agree with what everybody says, because what everybody says could be false or it could be a lie. That's why I don't believe anything everybody says. If somebody's bashing Nightmare on Elm Street 5, 6, 7, which is Dream Child, Freddy's Dead, and New Nightmare, that doesn't bother me, because I grew up with these films. I learned to love them for what they are. Great films. I don't label them as overhyped or underrated or overrated, because everybody, one thing I know is everybody uses the same fucking words. Everybody calls something overrated or underrated or overhyped or underhyped or some other stupid shit. When is people gonna wake up and make their own opinions? When are they gonna stop reading blog sites? When are they gonna stop going to IMDb and fucking writing tomatoes and making that into their own opinion? When are people gonna stop doing that and create their actually own opinion about films? To me, I love the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. It's in a special place in my heart, because I grew up with it. I grew up to love the lines of Freddy. I grew up to love the characters and all the kids in each film. I've grown to love Freddy films as what they are. I understand there's hate for certain sequels, but I look past the hate and I look at why I love this sequel or that sequel. I love the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I want to thank my mother that's no longer with me. I want to thank her for buying me the VHS box set, because that's the first time I ever had a box set before. And then after I got that, when I got a little bit older, I bought the DVD box set. And I also have the Blu-ray box set. Is that you have to understand, I am a huge fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, especially Freddy. I'm gonna do a video dedicated to him. Hell, I'm such a Nightmare on Elm Street fan. I got every soundtrack from all 9 films. I have filled with pictures of all 8 Nightmare on Elm Street films. I did a song for Freddy. I made a Nightmare on Elm Street rap song that I'm gonna put on this channel. I did art for Freddy. I know every line that Freddy ever said in all 8 films. You know, I don't really remember the lines he said about why you laughing, I ain't cut you yet, like he's the fucking Joker, but whatever the fuck. I even have the comic books of Nightmare on Elm Street, and I even have the books of Nightmare on Elm Street. It's just Nightmare on Elm Street has been in my life for what? Close to 30 years? You see, that's what I'm saying. No remake is gonna stay the test of time the way remakes like The Thing, The Blob 1987, The Ragings of the Body Snatchers 1978. Like, today's remakes will never reach that type of thing. They will never last that long. They won't even be remembered. And I hate when people say the films from the 80s look so cheesy. Well, you wait about 20 or 30 years and tell me how your CGI and your shitty acting is gonna look then. I'm sick of this trend of people bashing iconic films. It's really pathetic. It shows how society is sad. But I sit back and I look at what I love, and I will never let nobody take that from me. I will never let nobody with a channel or someone that thinks they're a reviewer get to me. That's why I love every Nightmare on Elm Street film. I don't care if people bash parts 2, 4, 5, 6, 3, 7, or even Freddy vs. Jason. I don't really care. I never cared about people's opinions. That's because I don't care about critics. And if somebody's trying to be a fake ass, low budget critic, I don't care about your opinion. I really don't. It's not to be an asshole or anything, but I really don't care. To leave this in a good note, I will never stop loving Nightmare on Elm Street. It will always have a special place in my heart, and I will always respect it and love it for what it is. And that is a great 80s horror movie, a great 80s horror franchise. The 80s, when ideas used to be so easy to get and people used to just make movies out of pennies. That's the thing about Hollywood today. It's so heartless. It's so numb to fans. At least in the 80s when Nightmare on Elm Street came out, it was a huge hit because it was different. It was different than anything else anybody saw in horror. Yes, I know, like I said in the beginning of this video, Dreamscape started that, but Nightmare on Elm Street took it to a new level. And I don't know what else to say. I love this franchise. You know what my favorite sequels are? All 8 of them. Because I don't like picking favorites. But I love all 8 sequels. My least favorite film in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is the remake. Even though it's not part of the original franchise, I just don't like that remake. That remake was a waste of time, money, and effort. Well, what am I talking about? They never even tried with the remake. But I love this franchise. I love the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And this is what this show is about. The TFK, the Franchise King, is about me showing my love and devotion for these franchises I own and I love. Because without these franchises, I wouldn't know nothing about film. So I just want to thank Heather Langenkamp, Wes Craven, Robert Englund, everybody that ever worked on all 8 Freddy films. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank everybody that wrote a script for Freddy. I want to say thank you to anybody that was the director of Freddy or did Freddy's makeup or anything. I just want to thank the whole thing because this year is the 30th anniversary for the iconic, the legendary Nightmare on Elm Street, the first film. And I know Robert Englund is going to wear the makeup one last time. And I understand that. And it is what it is. I'm not really mad I ain't going to be able to see him because I could just pop in a DVD, VHS, or Blu-ray and just watch him as Freddy with the makeup on. So with that said, this is Microphone Stalker signing off. I hope you liked this first video. This series is just about me showing my love and devotion for this franchise. I will review each film in the franchises I talk about. I just want to get this out the way, and then I start doing the reviews for each franchise. So with that said, this is Microphone Stalker signing off. Keep it Harvard, keep it wavy, and keep it gory, and keep it real. And I also want to thank my mother. Thank you, Mom, for giving me every VHS I ever owned. And thank you for letting me record all the 6-hour tapes that you bought me. Because without you, Mom, I wouldn't have none of the collection I have on VHS. So I love you, I miss you, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.